Well, hello everyone, it's Kari back again to share a really fun project using the Nested Keyholes die set from Missing Stamps. Have you ever made a tunnel card or a tunnel book? Today I'm going to show you how I constructed this tunnel book and we'll go through a walkthrough. I used some of my favorite Alice collection products, and so it's going to be a tunnel to Wonderland. I started out by spraying using some distress oxides and some mica sprays, and I used a variety of blues just to get a little bit of a variation in the colors. But I found out that my favorite blue to use was the tumbled glass because it's kind of an Alice blue. And I did spray both the sides. So I sprayed one side, allowed it to dry, then turned it over and sprayed the other side. And so we have, I don't know, how many do we have here? 4 or 5 pieces of cardstock, and these are A2 sized. So they're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So this is like a card, but it's a little booklet. So it's really fun. I started out just kind of putting out the nested keyholes dies and deciding which one I wanted where. They're all going to fit perfectly. So I decided I'm going to just start cutting. When you start on a project like this, you just have to dive in. Just jump in. Because I'll tell you, I have been thinking about this project for a long time. I've even had dreams about this project. So yes, it's taken me a while to get to this point. So just jump right in. I did cut out the second largest keyhole on my first panel. And then I placed that second one in there and I decided, you know what, there's not enough space in between these two keyholes. So I skipped the next one and went to the second one in from that one. So skip one, go to the next size, and I'm going to line it up on my next panel and tape it down, kind of hold it there, and then cut that one out. So we've got 2 now, and I'm going to line them up once again, put my third panel underneath, and then I'll put down the next one. So again, I'm skipping one of the dies in between, and there are plenty to do this, so you have quite a few nested keyhole dies to make as many as you want. And in truth, once I finished my little tunnel booklet, I actually wish I would have put one more page in. So here's where we're at so far. It looks really cool with the variation in colors, so you don't want them always to be all the same. I am going to save those cutout pieces for other cards, and I did one more just spraying the front of the cardstock so the back will remain white. Now the next step is to choose which stencils I want to use on these to decorate up the pages. There are so many beautiful stencils from Missing Stamps for this Alice collection, and I love them all, but you know I have my favorites. I thought the front needed to be really kind of wonky, so of course I had to go with the wonky checkers, and this one is really awesome. It is very Alice-esque, if that's even a word. I'm going to tape it down, and I start by just adding some ink because I'm not really sure which direction I'm going right yet, but I know that I have all of these beautiful stencils to play with, and so I'm just going to jump in, like I said, diving in. So I take a look at that. I'm using Mermaid Lagoon ink right here, and I decide, you know what, it's great, but I need a little more excitement and a little more interest. So I'm pulling out the crackle paste. So this is my Distress Crackle Paste, and I'm going to put that right over that Mermaid Lagoon that I stenciled on first. And this is going to be really cool when it dries. I'm carefully taking away the tape right here and just kind of wiping away those edges so I don't get a really strange edge. And that is going to look really cool once the crackling starts. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, clean off all my tools, and move on to the second page. For the second page, I decided the keyhole stencil would be really perfect for this. So I'm going in with some hickory smoke just to add just a bit of a shadow. And then we're going to do a little bit something different on this page here. So see that? I kind of did some of them a little darker and some a little lighter. And it's okay because when you have an Alice in Wonderland set, it can be as strange as you want it to be. So I'm using some white over the top. I have shifted the stencil just a little bit, so there's going to be a shadow behind the white. And I usually like to put my white pigment ink on an acrylic block and then use the ink from the block so that I don't contaminate my white pigment pad, ink pad there. So look at that, see the shadow, and then there's that white in front. It's really cool, and you can almost start to see the crackle on this one. That one fell off a little, that's okay. We're going to be covering this up with a few items as well. I'm going to set aside both of those panels and start working on the third panel. I will be doing the backs of those other ones, by the way, but just waiting for them to dry first. For this panel, I had to bring in this Alice set. This is the Alice background pack, and there are 3 stencils to this stencil set. I'm going to use 2 of them on each side of the page. For the first one, I'm using the larger diamonds and then the hearts, because in my mind, I'm thinking this might be the Queen of Hearts page. I'm going to dedicate one whole page to the Queen of Hearts because she plays a big role. So I'm inking up those hearts using some lumberjack plaid ink, and look how fun the diamonds look with those hearts. So here's what it looks like so far just on those front panels. You might have noticed that I skipped one of the panels. I'll get back to that in just a minute. But for the other side of this page, I'm going to do the diamonds and then the smaller diamonds. So there, I will be using all 3, just not all 3 at the same time. But this one I wanted to do kind of the same color scheme. We're doing the Mermaid Lagoon again to start this out. And then I'll skip over to the smaller diamonds. And this actually turned into a happy mistake for the colors. I thought I would do a really light blue, this speckled egg, I think it is. Yeah, speckled egg. But I already had some green on my stencil. So when I pulled away this stencil, it was actually kind of a lime green color. And I like how it turned out. So sometimes, see, it pays to not fully clean your stencils, I guess. So that's going to be that page. So take a look here. I'll do a quick flip through, and you can see that the backs now need a little attention on each page because I was waiting for elements of those to dry. So for this first back page, I'm going to do the keyholes again, and this time I'm just going to do a really light gray ink on that one. So I've got this page, I've got the keyhole page. Now this whole page I have skipped, but I wanted to do a really fun technique using some white embossing powder. And I'm going to use some mushrooms and some flowers from the Alice collection. These mushrooms are really cool. This is from the Smokin Caterpillars stamp set. So I'm going to stamp that down with some Versamark ink, which is the clear sticky ink. And I'll prep that page with an anti-static tool and then use that ink so that the white embossing powder can stick to that. And then I'll heat that through, and that will be a really fun element on this page. So kind of a subtle background for this one, but when we add our elements, it's really going to add a little something. So I've added my embossing powder. Now I'll heat that through with my heat tool here. And then on the other page, I'm going to do the same thing, only using the wildflowers. So look at that. You can see it. It's a nice subtle touch to that background. So for these tunnel books, it's really fun to just do a variety of techniques, a variety of things that you might like. You could do some stamping, all the things. Now to make my white embossing powder show up a little more, I wanted to add just a little more darker ink to those areas. And so I went in again with the Mermaid Lagoon, added some more ink, and that's going to make these pop just a little bit more. So I take a cloth and clean off the extra ink from the embossing powder, and there we go. Now you can see those a little bit better. So look how it's coming together. We're going to need to put this card together somehow, so I'm going to show you how to do that. But on this back page, first we need to add a little something. I'm going to take the small keyhole and temporarily adhere it to the back because I don't want that to show through on when the whole book is closed. So I'm using some temporary tape right here, just lining that, make sure I have it lined up perfectly. Then I'll remove that, and now I can stencil on this background. I'm going to use this beautiful stencil right here. By the way, I will link everything in the description below, so if you want to take a look, then they're all going to be there for you. This is the Filigree Card Suits stencil. And I'm going to stencil those on, just moving this around a little bit and going around that keyhole. I thought this would be a really great way to end the book, and I think this stencil is just so beautiful. Now, originally I thought I was going to make this book with lots of different colors, like every page would be a different color, which would be really fun to do too, but in the end I decided to stick with Alice Blue, but I may change it up next time. On this next to last page, I'm using this stencil. This is the Cheshire cat, and it's super cute, but it's called Cheshire Smiles. I'm using a very light shade of purple, kind of disappearing off into the edges there. And now let's put this together. I have a variety of washi tapes. Those two didn't really match, so I've got some grays and blacks, and I'm just testing them out to see which ones I like the best. If you're anything like me, you have a nice little collection that you can choose from to put this book together. So I'm just testing those out. That one was a little too crazy for me, but I do have a heart one that I might use for the Queen of Hearts page. I decided to go with this black pinstripe washi tape. I really like the way that that looks. So I'm going to put that down and then close the book and cut off the excess. And then I'm going to use some adhesive to help that washi tape stay put. So I'm using some collage medium here. You could use the multi-matte medium as well. I've got a small little paintbrush, and I'm going to just glue that down, because you know that washi tape is a lighter tack tape and it will want to come up and peel up after a while. So this is a really important step to do, just to make sure that your book will stay together. So I'll show you one more time on this next page. We're going to put on the washi tape. I started to use the pinstripe once again, but then I remembered, wait a minute, I wanted to use the hearts on this Queen of Hearts page. So I'm going to pull that up and go ahead in with the Queen of Hearts, my heart washi here. So this is going to add a pop of color. She could never have too many hearts, right? So there we go, and then again trim that down. So I'm going to do a couple of pages at a time and then use the matte medium or the collage medium, which is what I'm using right here, to keep that down. And of course those are going to have to dry in between. So before I put all the pages together, I need to just save my little paintbrush here. So I'm taking a wet paper towel, wrapping it in, wrapping the little paintbrush in there, and that way that will stay nice and ready for when I need to do the next pages. So I have a bunch of my favorite images already stamped out. Some of them are already even colored. I'm going to cut them out using the coordinating dies. I will probably go and color some more of these images that I haven't finished yet, but I'm not sure how many images I'm going to need. So again, just choosing some of my favorites and cutting them out, and then we can work on adding the images to the card. So here's a look at what we have so far. It's looking really good. I need to add this last page though. In order to do that, since we've already got it all stacked up on the left side, I'm adding some extra pages beneath that last page just to try to get it the same level as the other part of the booklet, so that I can put this washi tape on really straight. So just a tip, you sometimes may need to just prop it up a little bit just to get it to work right. So I'm leaving this in just to show you that yes, I did have to add a few extra pages there to get that one done. Now I am going to paint on some collage medium on those last ones, but I will do that off camera. What I wanted to show you was this. This is sticky back canvas. And it is so awesome. I learned about this at Creativation last year. I knew that this is what I wanted to use to completely seal up the book for the spine of the book. The great thing about this canvas is you can stencil on it. You can put any design you want on it, and make it your own. And so it's just a white blank canvas that you can do this, and I'm just using distress ink and stenciling on some diamonds. So this is going to be the spine of our book, and look at that, it looks really great. I did need to cut it down just a little bit, so as I tested it out on my book wasn't as wide, or the little booklet is not as wide as this sticky back canvas was. So I'm taking a metal edge ruler and my craft knife, and I'm just going to line it up there on my grid and cut it down. So it took me a couple of tries here. I just went over it again and again until I got that loose, and that created the perfect size for our binding here. So see, this is going to look really great. I'm testing it out here, and I think it looks awesome. So I'm going to peel off the backing to this, and it is sticky. It's very, very sticky. So this is going to hold our book together perfectly. And I'm going to press that on the front, wrap it around, and press it nicely on the back. Just trying to keep it as taut and tight as I can. And then again, I'll trim those edges, and look how cute our little booklet is. Now comes one of the best parts, and that's putting all the little characters in. I knew I wanted that little white rabbit in the very back of the book because he's what started it all off, right? And I think I want to put Alice falling down on the very front. And as I build this book, I decide that it would be great to just temporarily adhere these down so I can build this up the way I want to, and then I'll add everything more permanently after I kind of get an idea of how I want this to look. So I'm just going to build this up, placing things in. And one of the fun things about a book like this, that's a tunnel book, you can see all the way through to the back, is that you can have things peeking out through along as you go along. I knew for sure I wanted this little door right here on the front. It's going to give a little more stability as well to our front page that has the least amount of edging around it. So I put that there, and then I'm going to put a second one on the front of the second page lined up with that first one. So I don't know if that makes sense, but you'll see in a minute as I put Alice back down. Falling Alice keeps falling off. So I'm going to line that up with the first one, and then I'll have Alice that's kind of kneeling down looking at this little door next to that second door. But that will be peeking through, see? Look at that right there. So that'll be peeking through the front page. So you can see this is really fun to do. If you have a bunch of these images ready to go, it's super fast and really easy. On this page, I knew I wanted a little tea party with Alice kind of peeking through on her chair. So again, I'm just temporarily adhering these so I can audition them for the pages. And there's the Mad Hatter. On this page, of course, I knew it was going to be the Queen of Hearts, so I've got the little king there. There's the queen playing croquet. And I thought she looked kind of funny all the way up like that, so I end up putting her down just a little bit more. She will peek through just a tiny bit. And there, she's going to go right there. I'll put the little king. Now, I did end up moving these characters around quite a bit. So I ended up putting the little cards there that are acting as the croquet game piece. And again, I did move things around quite a bit. I also stamped out a bunch of the sentiments to add on black cardstock with white embossing powder. So I've got a bunch of sentiments you can see, and I knew this one was perfect for the front. It says, I heard you fell down a rabbit hole. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that straight down. I have a little key that's a charm, and it's just, I think it's from the jewelry section at one of the craft stores. And so I had that. I'll probably want to add that to the front as well. I think that goes really well with our theme. Now this front one, I did have to use an acrylic block to get those to stay, because remember we put that crackle paste on the front. So I want to make sure that that really sticks down. Now for the back of this one, I'm going to use another image. You could mirror image and stamp these images so you have the same image on the back that's on the front, but I wanted to use different images. So for this one, I wanted Alice in the bottle here. So I'm just going to cut her down. You saw that I traced it out on the front from the front image. I'm going to cut her down to fit perfectly just like that with the little drink me sign or tag. So that's going to go there just like that. And then on the back of the door, I want to use this curiosity often leads to trouble sentiment. And that water splash that I cut off from the little bottle is going to be perfect for this as well. So I fussy cut it out and then used a black marker to trace around the edges to kind of cover up the white edging. And I'm going to fit that right underneath the curiosity often leads to trouble sentiment. So see, I'm going to nestle that in right there. That's kind of a fun little touch. It's not going to fully cover up the door from the front, but I think it does the job just well enough. And like I say, if you want to mirror image these and stamp them out as a mirror image, you could use the door on the back of the door again. But today we're going to do it this way using some different die cuts. So for this page, I'm using a sentiment that says, "We all go a little mad sometimes." It's perfect for this tea party and the Mad Hatter. And I'm just going to commit. I'm going to start gluing things down, making it a little more permanent as we go. As I say, this is so fun to build up. I really enjoyed this part of it. So I'm going to glue down that sentiment just right there at the top. Glue down all of the characters as well. Look at that. That's going to be very cute from the front. I just want to show those little teacups kind of peeking through on the front part. And then this page here, I decided what should say, "Take time to smell the roses." And then I've added a bunch of roses here that I colored up in. They were white, but they're starting to be red in the centers. So they're kind of a whiter color around the edges. And I glued those around there. And I am going to change things up again, like I say, and I'll go through a final walkthrough at the end. For the backs of these, I cut out the little drink me bottle and the tea set here, a little hedgehog from the Croquet set, and a couple other little things. And to glue that key to the front, I used the multi-matte medium. It's a really strong adhesive that will keep that there. So this is the Alice stamp set. That's where I got the Falling Alice and the sentiment from the front page. And I'm just going to walk through where everything came from so you can see all the pages and what I used. So this came from Alice's Adventures. There's little Alice kneeling down and the one in the little jar there. And also that sentiment came from that same stamp set. And then this one, of course, the Tea Party stamp set is where I got Alice on the chair, the Mad Hatter, and some of these little stamps here. The little hedgehog, though, is from the Croquet stamp set, and then the little cookies and the drink me is from that same Alice stamp set that I showed you at the very beginning. So the Smokin Caterpillar set is where I got the mushrooms for the background on this page, and then the flowers for this one came from the Wildflower stamp set. The sentiment came from the Wonderland Wisdom stamp set. So there's a lot of really great sentiments on that set. And then this page with the little Queen of Hearts came from the Croquet stamp set right here, as did that little card. And the king came from this Alice's Adventures stamp set. So he's right here. And also the rabbit came from that set too. I'll show you that at the very end. The sentiment that says "Take time to smell the roses" came from this stamp set, which is the Painting the Roses stamp set. But the flowers that I wanted to use, I wanted them to be a little bigger. So I actually found that rose flower from the Teacup stamp set. It's this one right here. So that's why I did that. There's the white rabbit that I was mentioning is from this Storybook Alice stamp set. The Cheshire cat is this one from the All Smiles stamp set. I also used that sentiment there to stamp at the bottom with some purple ink, and I'll show you that in a minute. Then these little pieces I die cut from the Wonderland Wisdom. The coordinating dies actually cut out those designs. So I just used the dies and colored them with a little ink. Then that Curtsying Alice is from this stamp set, which was the Alice's Adventure stamp set that I showed you earlier as well. So that's where I got everything. Here's a little look through at the book, and that last page with the Cheshire cat says, well, I've often seen a cat without a grin, but a grin without a cat, it's the most curious thing I've ever saw in my life. And again, on the very last page with that white rabbit, I did stamp another sentiment that says, don't lose your muchness. So I hope you enjoyed this project today. Thank you for sticking around. I did cut it down as much as I could. I did a lot of editing on this video. If you stayed to the last, thank you so much. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.